My roommate is trying to sublease her room to someone I have a restraining order against. I need help. Original post. When I was a freshman in college, a guy named Pete, 21 million, name changed, began harassing me to date him. I refused over and over again, and it ended with him ripping my shirt off at a party to try to touch my breasts. I filed a police report and Pete was found guilty of assault. I have a 1,000-foot restraining order against Pete. Fast forward to this week, and my roommate Shelley needs a subletter to take over for her while she studies abroad for the summer. She didn't know she was leaving until 2 weeks ago and has been looking for someone to take over since then. She found Pete on CL and asked me if I approved. I showed her my court documents, but Shelley claims she can't find anyone else to take over and that I will have to deal. We got into a heated argument and she just left the apartment. This morning, Shelley texted me that Pete would be moving his stuff into the apartment today. I called the police, but Pete hasn't shown up yet, so they can't do anything. Shelley also says she will be staying for the remainder of the week. The lease says that she can move whoever she wants in without my permission. Same goes for me, but there's still the issue of the restraining order. The landlord told me that it was between Shelley and me to figure out. We both have 1-year leases that expire in December with the same terms. TL.DR. Roommate is trying to sublease your apartment to a man I have a restraining order against. She told me to deal with it. Landlord and cops haven't done anything about it. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Is Pete aware that you're the person he'll be sharing the apartment with? You might want to let him know that you'll be calling the police if he sets foot in the place. Oop. Pete is aware that I'm the roommate because Shelley posted the ad with a photo of us both, without my permission. I already promised I would be calling the police, but Shelley is locked in her room and refuses to listen to me. I'm chilling by the door with 911 already pre-dialed. Comment 2. I agree with the consensus of calling the police the moment he arrives. Has he actually signed anything, like a sublet agreement? If so, he'll probably be on the hook to pay for an apartment he can't legally step in. Also not a lawyer, but I can't imagine that attempting to enter a living arrangement with a person holding a restraining order doesn't negate the restraining order. The first question I would ask Pete if I were a cop judge is, why did you think you could live there without violating the order? OP. Shelley claims that Pete has already paid her for all 3 months in advance and that he signed a contract with her. I told her that her contract does not override my restraining order, but she basically put her hands over her ears to drown out what I was saying. I plan on calling the cops the moment I see his car pull up, which is less than 1,000 feet. Shelley will still be here for the rest of the week, so I'm afraid this will escalate. Update. Hi everyone. Thanks for reading this update. I have added some extra details at the beginning to better explain what happened. Things took some M. Night Shyamalan twists. Details: Shelley and I were not close friends. We were simply roommates with our own separate bedrooms and a connecting kitchen living space. I have only known her since last December when we originally signed our leases. We have hung out, but the only real connection we had is that she likes anime, Japan, and I am Asian. The Craigslist ad that Shelley posted didn't have a photo. It turns out that she had used a generic photo of the two of us in an ad on our college's Facebook page, but Shelley took it down before I got a chance to take a screenshot. Actual update. After I made my Reddit post, Shelley was locked in her room for 3 hours. I tried to talk to her, but she wouldn't come out of the room. She left her room to get food, and just walked past me as if I didn't exist. Everyone who I called told me that until Pete actually showed up, no crime was being committed, so I couldn't report it until then. I just sat by the door and window watching for Pete's car. This continued until early Saturday morning when Shelley woke up for her morning jog. I was still looking for Pete's car. I stayed up all night on the couch. Shelley tried to sneak out past me, but I woke up and blocked the door. I needed an explanation for why I was being forced to stay up all night waiting to call the police on Pete when she knew that I had a restraining order against him. Shelley's explanation was that the restraining order doesn't matter to her, that she has dealt with unreasonable people like me before, and that she has never listened to any restraining order before now, so why should she just for me? The more I listened, the sicker I felt. Shelley basically admitted to me that she is a cunt. I told Shelley that she was a real piece of work and that I was going to maintain my watch for Pete and that I would contemplate taking legal action. She told me that whether I liked it or not, she was done looking for subletters and that it was my problem. I told her to get out and go for her jog, and she left and came back a bit later and locked herself in her room again. Sometime around noon, I had accidentally fallen asleep because I had been awake 36+ hours at that point. I woke up and saw Pete helping Shelley move her stuff into her car. I didn't see him in the apartment, but he was helping her in the parking lot. I immediately locked them both out and called the police. Shelley and Pete came to the door again, and when Pete saw it was locked and when he saw me watching from the window, he blew up at Shelley. He started to ask her why I was in the apartment and why Shelley didn't tell him that I was the roommate. He demanded his money back and I could hear them screaming at each other through the door. The cops showed up, handcuffed Pete and Shelley. I told them my story and Pete said he had text messages and emails to back himself up. The cops checked his phone, saw texts from Shelley saying along the lines that her roommate wouldn't care about XYZ because he was a chill guy. Pete had posted his own ad looking for a male roommate. That's right, Shelley is a liar too. The cops released Pete because he had proof that he didn't know it was me. I'm okay with this because I saw the emails, texts too. Shelley was charged with disorderly conduct and her mom came to get her. Sunday evening, Shelley and her mom come back to the apartment to finish packing for her study abroad. Shelley made some snide remarks about me, definitely going roommate hunting to find her a subletter as I said I would. I ignored her. Shelley left for her plane this morning. You know the good thing about separate leases? I am only liable for my rent, not hers. So I'm going to sit on my butt for the rest of the summer while she gets evicted for lack of rent payment. TLDR. Pete had no clue it was me. Shelley got arrested. She thinks I'll find a subletter, but I'm going to let her get evicted. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Sounds like a crappy situation all around, but it also sounds like Pete didn't know, and now that he does, will not be back to bother you. Since you are on separate leases, you should hopefully not have anything to worry about legally or financially. Let Shelley deal with those issues herself, she brought them on herself. A quick question, if she does fail to pay, could you in any way get kicked out, or are you pretty much in the clear? Either way, good luck, your roommate is immature and deserves the consequences of whatever happens to her in this situation. OP. Our leases explicitly say that we are only liable for our individual portion of the rent, so I'm in the clear. And Pete really didn't know about me being there. That's how much of a bitch Shelley is to let a man get arrested over something so stupid. And thanks. Comment 2. I mean, what did she think was gonna happen? On top of the shameless assholery, Shelley sounds like she's missing a few marbles. Oop. I think that what happened was that Shelley was focused only on going abroad and not focused on her own actions. She couldn't find anyone, so as soon as she found someone she thought problem solved and ignored the problems until I called the police. Apu also had this comment, I wish she could have gotten charged with more, but she started bawling her eyes out to the police officer and he went easy on her because she looks so young. To me it's just another sign that she's an awful person because she was manipulating the cops. The lease states explicitly that I'm not liable for her rent and even if she tries to sue me, it's my word against hers and I'm confident I would win that legal battle. Pete is staying as far away from it as he can and he apologized to me and is trying to get his deposit back from her. Now to the next story, story 2. My best friend's fiancé confessed he loves me but still planned to marry her. I told her, she left him, and I'm helping her move on. My best friend and I have always been close, and I adore her. We're really open and honest with each other, about as close as two people can go without being romantically attached. We're even joking that we're wives, because we're so close. Because of her fastidious personality, we have already discussed random circumstances and how we would like the other to approach them. For example, if a guy asked one of us out, how would the other react? Or if we both developed affections for the same person. We've even discussed what would happen if one of us died. One of these situations involved the dreaded, if I had a boyfriend and he had feelings for you issue. The possibility of this happening has arisen several times over the years, with varied degrees of concern. We both thought that would be terrible, but we couldn't agree on how to deal with it. I've always claimed that I'd want to know regardless of the circumstances, but she insisted on not telling me. She has been adamant about this every time it comes up, regardless of how I phrase or change the circumstance. She made it abundantly apparent that she would never want to know. About 3 years ago, my best buddy began dating a guy. He was already a loose member of our friend group, so we both knew him. I didn't think much of him at first. He appeared cool, courteous, and respectful. He gradually grew more integrated into our group, and he got along with everyone. The guys in the group liked him, the girls were excited for my closest friend, and, most importantly, she was overjoyed. She had always wanted to be in love, and he seemed ideal for her. He treated her and everyone else with great respect. He and I got along great, but we never hung out one-on-one. Our conversations were primarily limited to small talk about music, work, and other casual topics, which occurred in group situations. He made similar efforts to connect with the other members of the group, and I always appreciated that he was interested in her life and the people she was close to. I've always been the odd one out among our group of pals. I missed a few classes in school, so the most of my pals are significantly older than me, and I've always been the baby of the group. While most of us attended to the same institution, I've never been interested in dating. Though I've had interest from men, I'm a daydreamer who is obsessed with my profession. My future goals do not include children, and may not even include marriage. The idea of love appeals to me, but I've always been content with myself and have never felt compelled to seek it out. This resulted in an ongoing joke among our friends about me dying alone, surrounded by dogs. It was innocent fun, and the guy joined in on the jokes. Over time, I observed that he was particularly concerned in my love life, urging me to follow my goals and take my time. My best friend always did the same thing, so I didn't think much of it. Until about 4 months ago, I met a man, 25 million, who utterly swept me off my feet. We'll call him Max because that is his name. It was very unexpected, he just swooped in, and we've had a lovely, fairy tale-like romance. Because of my lack of experience with relationships, I've spent a lot of time discussing my sentiments with my best buddy. She's pleased for me, offers advice, and is usually quite supportive. Her fiancé, let's call him Guy, is often present during these chats and occasionally contributes. Everything seemed wonderful and awesome until Guy started acting strangely. We'd be hanging out as a group, and I'd relate a tale about Max. Guy would suddenly act strangely, informing me that seemingly typical things Max did were red flags. For example, when Max unexpectedly came up to take me stargazing late at night, which I appreciated because I enjoy surprises and work in astronomy, Guy went on about how hazardous it was for me to go alone, blah, blah. Guy has always been polite, supportive, and considerate to others. His judgment is so respected that my best friend began to question Max's intentions solely because Guy expressed doubts. Meanwhile, all of my other pals thought Max sounded fantastic and dismissed Guy's conduct as strange. During this time, Guy told me that he planned to marry my closest friend. I was ecstatic for them and pledged to keep it a secret. He told me because he wanted advice on the ring and how my best friend wanted to be proposed to. Everything appeared fine until it wasn't. The tipping point occurred when Max met my friends for the first time. Everyone liked him, and he appeared to get along with everybody. Max and Guy were speaking off to the side when Guy abruptly dropped his drink on the table and walked out of the pub. My best friend became perplexed and pursued him, while I approached Max to find out what had happened. Max appeared shocked. He told me that Guy had been performing the big brother thing, which he had learned from a number of the guys in the group. The majority of them were joking around, but Guy was much more serious. He stormed out after Max expressed how serious he was about me. Max told him that there was no need for concern because he would never injure me. Later on, Max speculated that Guy might be envious. I was hesitant because Guy had never done or said anything to indicate that he had affections for me. He'd always treated me the same as the rest of the group, despite the fact that we spent more time together because I frequently visited him and my closest friend's house. I decided I'd had enough of the stress and messaged Guy. First, I inquired if he was okay. Then I stated I hoped things was okay amongst us all. The conversation went as follows. My response: "Is everything okay? I hope we're good." The gentleman: "It's not cool, I don't trust that guy." You: "Do you mind if I ask why not?" Specifically: "No one else has bad vibes, everyone even invited him to the beach tomorrow." Guy: "What are you saying?" He looks at you funny. "I can't explain it properly. You've known me a while. You know I have your best interests at heart, trust me on this. I understand that you can't help but get bad vibes, but no one else does. I'm sorry, but I need more than trust me to go on. While I appreciate your concern, I'm capable of making my own mistakes, and I don't think this is one. It would mean a lot to me if you could try to get along with him to make it easier for him to fit in. I plan on keeping him around for a while, and, best friend, wants to do double dates and stuff. You're going to run into him eventually." Guy replies: 1. Double dates sound lame. 2. Even if they didn't, I don't want him to come. I say: 1. Take that up with your lady. 2. Do you really not like him that much? He responded: "Okay, he seems alright, but kind of weird. How can a theater kid be so alpha? It's more that I'm jealous." My response was: "I resent the notion that theater guys can't be manly. But also, the group is really tight, and everyone really likes you. You've been one of us for years now. Max got a lot of attention tonight because he's the new guy. I'm sorry if you felt excluded, but I promise it's really not like that." He didn't respond for a long, then sent this. He said: "I've been thinking very carefully about how to phrase this message. I don't want you to think I don't love best friend, because I do, very much, but I'm also in love with you and have been for about 2 years. When I realized, I thought about breaking up with best friend, but you were always so in your own world. I thought I'd never have a shot anyway, especially if I was your BFF's ex. I pushed it down and lived with it. It was hard. It sucked. I got over it, Kai. I figured that if I couldn't be with you, I could at least be happy with best friend, and close to you. Then you met Max, and watching you begin to fall in love with him was the most difficult thing I've ever had to do. I know this is cliché and theatrical. I know it's wrong, and I should just not say anything about him, but I genuinely feel sick when you talk about him. I can't tell you how much I wanted to strike the guy last night, and then how bad I felt about it when I learned he was actually a nice guy. I believe the only thing worse than you being with another guy is you being with another guy I like. Sorry for offloading this onto you. I know it's unfair to do this now. I do love best friend, you know I do. I want to marry her. I would rather you didn't tell her, but what happens next is up to you, I guess. You. If this is a joke, it's not funny. Can you please tell me the truth? He replied. Sorry, but that is the truth. What are you going to do? I have not responded to him. He then sent me a few more texts, asking what I was going to do. I said, I'm thinking. Small edit. Since I posted this, he has sent several more messages wondering what I was going to do. I told him I hadn't made up my mind, but I also made it apparent that I didn't reciprocate his feelings. I am devastated, and my feelings are nothing compared to how best friend would react if she knew. I want to tell her so badly. I know if I were in her situation, I would want to know. The last thing I want is to marry someone who isn't open with me about something like this. But when we joked about this situation earlier this year, she insisted she didn't want to know. I understand it is not my responsibility, but I still feel bad. I'm wondering if I did anything to provoke Guy's reaction, and if I can even continue to pretend he never said anything. His affections have never been reciprocated. Max was with me when I received the message and has been incredibly supportive, albeit a little annoyed with Guy for obvious reasons. Send help. Summary. Best friend and Guy met 3 years ago. He fit right in with our group of friends, got along with everyone, and was overall a pleasant person. Life continued on. They moved in together, and I was overjoyed for her. He is everything she has ever wanted. Then I met what seemed to be my dream boyfriend. Everyone was pleased for me, except Guy, who became quite standoffish and strange about it. I don't think much about it. Guy wants to marry my closest friend and asks me for advice. Awesome. After Max and Guy meet for the first time, things quickly escalate. Guy begins messaging me that he is in love with me but wants to marry my best friend and only be in love with me in the shadows. His sentiments for me are not returned in the slightest. I need to discuss this Reddit. Should I tell her? Should I keep this to myself? I am upset at Guy. I feel dreadful. I feel terrible for my dearest friend. I'm not sure if I can face her in the eyes while she marries this person. I'm not sure I can let her marry him without her knowing all the facts. I'm overwhelmed. Please give me some advice. Update. Sorry, this will probably grow long. It does. There were many differing ideas on what to do, and many of you had very good reasons for your suggestions. However, there appeared to be a consensus. 1. This sucks, and there is no ideal answer, and 2. Everyone seemed to agree on the letter idea, which had been presented by a couple of people. The gist was that I should write a letter, add screen caps, and then give her the information. That way, she would have some control over whether or not she wanted to know. I have to admit that telling her there was something to know felt like I was forcing her to open it. But this is what happened. I made the envelope and went to her house while Guy was working, or just to hang out. Typical things. Reddit, I'm not a bad actress, but this woman knows me very well. She answered the door for me and instantly asked what was wrong. To my everlasting shame, I burst into tears. It was quite pitiful of me and not great. Ugh. After I had collected myself, I began saying what I had been practicing in my brain. That was something we'd discussed a lot in hypothetical scenarios, and it had actually occurred. She'd always stated she didn't want to know, but I wanted to give her the option. I handed her the letter. Then, without even opening it, she started crying, which prompted me to restart. That was okay since the absurdity of us both standing in her living room crying all over each other made us giggle a little. Many others assumed she had noticed or understood Guy's feelings, and they were completely correct. But it gets crazier than that. I honestly cannot believe I'm describing this. It's simply odd. I do not know. My closest friend had assumed Guy had a harmless little crush on me, the kind that people in partnerships sometimes have. But when he didn't tell her about it, she began to feel uncomfortable. She did something she should not have. You know how it goes, she snooped. She snooped on his PC months ago and discovered a file with my initials buried among a slew of other documents. She went to get his laptop and handed it to me to read as she read my letter. Inside, he had written stories, similar to fan fiction, about the three of us living a poly-relationship lifestyle as spouses. Some of it was sexual content, which, I think I would understand more if it had only been sexual fantasies. However, there were also really long records about our lives together. It also goes deep. There was a whole storyline about him attempting to persuade me to have children. I love them, but I don't have children, and everyone knows it. There were many stories of varying lengths. I didn't read them all. Instead, I browsed them with my mouth hanging wide. It's difficult to express. It was strange to read about myself like that. There were newer docs that my closest friend hadn't read yet. She went on to say that she didn't mind because she was in all of the articles as well. That reassured her of his love for her, but having me in their lives in that way was clearly not ideal for her. She was disturbed by the way he had spoken to me in the previous day's messages and those he had sent since. I asked her many questions, including whether she felt safe. She stated she did. When I asked her what she wanted to do, she stated she wanted to leave him. She also apologized for not informing me earlier. While it bothers me that she didn't, given what transpired later, I've basically forgiven her and put any discussion about it on hold. She doesn't need it right now. I've been so glad that she wasn't upset with me for busting her bubble and was more concerned about her that it appears to be a secondary issue. This was not one of the things I expected to happen during my vacation. The subject then moved to me being concerned about her safety. While he does not appear to be dangerous, his conduct is quite compulsive, and he is clearly irritated that his fantasy is growing more and more distant from reality with Max in the picture. I'm also concerned about Max's safety.